Trevor Horn has been described as the man who invented the 80s, and this title doesn't seem that far-fetched when you look back at the innovative work and his subsequent influence on music production. Trevor began his musical life as a jobbing bass player around the London music scene, and then later trying his hand at publishing, writing for up-and-coming artists. Without great success, his attention quickly turned to fronting his own acts, the Buggles, with Jeff Downes. This proved to be a big step in his career, as their song "Video Killed a Radio Star" was a worldwide hit. The song even had the acclaim of being the very first video shown on the brand new music channel MTV. Both Jeff and Trevor then went on to join the band Yes and recorded an album with them, although the tour that followed was unsuccessful and led to the split of the band. So both are back to continue their work with the Buggles and start work on the album Adventures in Modern Recording. Except not quite. On the first day recording was supposed to begin, Jeff left and joined the band Asia, leaving Trevor to complete the album by himself, although it was at this time that he became free to work with other artists again, and this time as producer. Trevor's approach to production was extremely hands-on for the time, and very technical. His first major success came with the band Dollar. The lavish attention to detail and sonic embellishments set his productions apart straight away, and this carried on with his work with the band ABC. Their song, Shoot That Poison Arrow from the Lexicon of Love LP, was originally recorded with the band playing through the song live, although with the band satisfied, Trevor knew it could hit harder by being tighter and punchier. To do this, he employed his first proper rig consisting of a Roland TR-808, a Simmons drum machine, a Minimoog, and the Roland CSQ-600 sequencer. To get rock-solid timing, he had the 808 modified with extra triggers to send to the Simmons, and was able to use the CV gate of the Moog to enter notes into the sequencer that would then be played back triggered with the precise timing of the rhythm units. This metronomic precision took the track to another level, and gave it a futuristic touch that the record-buying public of the day lapped up. It was at this time that Trevor also acquired an early Fairlight sampler, costing £30,000, which was enough then to buy a reasonable house. They weren't exactly commonplace in studios, and offered something completely different that most people didn't even really understand. Offering a sample rate of 32 kHz, this was enough to provide more realistic recreations of acoustic instruments than a synthesizer ever could. And initially, for most operators, this was the goal. For Trevor though, the creative possibilities transcended this intended application, and he and his team of engineers and musicians set about creating otherworldly sounds and textures. One of the first projects they used it on was the Malcolm McLaren album Duck Rock, that featured the first UK hip-hop record, Buffalo Gals. The song features the DJ group world-famous Supreme Team. By all accounts, the famous scratch DJs were a bit perplexed by the whole process, and Trevor recalls wrapping up the long sessions in London. They were leaving England to go back to New York when they phoned me up and said, "Trevor, we've got to record that song again." I said, "Why?" "Because the scratching's whack." "Does that mean it's bad?" "I don't get you." "It's whack," they repeated. "Don't worry about that, it's fine, it's a punk record." So they said, "Okay, can we have the drum machine then?" And I said, "No, it cost me £2,000, I can't just give it to you." So they said, "Okay, bye." So they were gone, and I never heard from them again. The same year, Trevor was asked by Yes to return, but this time as producer as opposed to lead singer. This resulted in a completely different sound for the band, and the song Owner of a Lonely Heart is an example of this radical shift. They did this by using intermittent manipulated sounds from the Fairlight and the synclavier, and the gated reverb trick to create an illusion of size and presence, coupled with long-tail reverbs mainly from the Lexicon 480L. The result is a sonic treat full of what Trevor calls whiz-bangs that were groundbreaking then, and still sound great today. Trevor had been using Psalm Studios in East London for a lot of his sessions, but it became extremely painstaking to set down and set up his ever-growing complex rig of instruments and effects, so the obvious answer to this was to acquire his own space, which he eventually did. He also married Psalm's co-director Jill Sinclair, so when they bought the Island Record Studios in West London, they renamed it Psalm West. At this time, they also established the record labels ZTT and Stiff Records. Psalm West went on to be used by many big-name artists over the years, including the Pet Shop Boys, and was one of George Michael's favourite studios. During the sessions for Duck Rock and the Yes album, Trevor was assisted by JJ Jeksalik. JJ was a Fairlight whiz, and was able to get the most out of this seemingly complex new instrument. The success of this partnership eventually led to the formation of the group Art of Noise, that also featured Gary Langan, Ann Dudley and Paul Morley. The Art of Noise made full use of the Fairlight by chopping and stretching samples from obscure places like the Andrews Sisters records, and also sounds they'd recorded whilst working with other artists, with a lot of the snippets coming from the Duck Rock sessions. They also used snippets from the Yes album they produced, with one of Alan White's drum outtakes becoming the distinctive beat for Close to the Edit. The Fairlight was quite limited by today's standards, with a default sampling time of half a second, which could be lengthened by reducing the frequency rate, but it would reduce the sound quality. This meant that whatever went in came out characterised by the process, which they liked, and to further this, they would add effects such as delays and reverbs to create interesting new sounds. The next act to get the Trevor Horn treatment was a brand new band coming out of Liverpool called Frankie Goes to Hollywood. Similarly to ABC, Trevor was finding it hard to get a cohesive sound that was capable of getting to the top of the charts. The song they were focusing on was Relax, and several completely different versions were attempted from the initial live band recording, to hiring in Ian Jury's band The Blockheads to bring some funk, and then ultimately by piecing together parts in a similar way to how the Yes song Owner of a Lonely Heart was constructed. From weeks of trying different versions, the journey to reach pop perfection took patience and ultimately just one night of inspiration. The story goes that the team were told to scrap yet another try at the track, but then took it upon themselves to try something completely different. Taking inspiration from a bass motif that the Blockheads had played, JJ plus engineer-guitarist Stephen Lipson and keyboard whiz Andy Richards set about deconstructing and then reconstructing the song using the Jupiter 8 synthesizer, the Roland GR300 guitar synth, and Stephen's Fender Strat, plus of course the ever-present Fairlight. The sounds and arrangement they came up with that night is incredible, and Trevor was blown away by what they did, and his persistence paid off massively. The way they ended up recording this back in 1984 is actually more akin to the way artists and producers construct records today, so the overall style was so fresh and stunning at the time. I remember being blown away myself by the sounds of these records. Two Tribes from Frankie Goes to Hollywood was another record that sounded like it had been beamed in from the future at the time, and it was hugely inspiring. Trevor and his team went on to have more hits with other artists during this period, including the sonically notable Slave to the Rhythm by Grace Jones. At the end of the 80s and into the 90s, he also produced the debut album from Seal, which contained the massive hit Crazy. Even now, with a new decade and new technology, it still had that Trevor Horn stamp. To try and characterise what the Trevor Horn signature stamp is, you have to listen to the sonic details that his productions have. They also have an ambition to keep the listener interested with attention-grabbing parts that sound unique to the record. He always encouraged experimentation and gave the musicians and engineers time to come up with something great instead of just repeating something that had already been done. This maverick approach means that his records will continue to stand out even today with the huge advancements that have been made over the last 30 years. It really is an amazing achievement.